Hey everybody, it's your spiritual big brother here. I am going to try another spiritual notebook. So how this works is, it's a bunch of my raw thoughts. There's still thoughts that I'm wrestling with. I'm just sharing them out loud, and these come to me all the time, and I love capturing them, but I haven't found a good space to kind of share them. And that's what I want to do here on the channel. This is just one piece of my channel. There's a lot of great stuff on here, but this is for people that I guess think like this too. So I'm kind of just trying to open up my inner world to people so they can kind of see how I arrive at some of the truths that I arrive at, and just help you guys kind of see the inner workings a little bit. It's kind of a fun thing for me, and I hope it's good for you guys. So definitely leave some comments or whatever. But I'm just going to flow through this. The way that it's set up, I'm going to share the thought raw, the way that I wrote it down, unpolished. And then I'm going to kind of back that up, explain it maybe a little bit more. And we're going to do that for quite a bit. There's going to be quite a bit here, so feel free to pause the video at any time. Reflect on some of this, think about it, leave a comment if you'd like. But okay, let's dive right into this. This one is finding God. It's like taking one step forward, and God does the same. And at first, you don't notice anything, really. He's so far away. So you take another. This is called building faith. It's before you actually know he exists. You take a step, he does too. And eventually, you start to hear him and feel him. That's the synchronicities and signs and patterns. Then you get a little excited and start trying harder and learning more and rewarding and asking others about it. Then you get so close that you finally see him in your way that makes sense, finding God to you. That last one was a little bit broken there, but let me explain what this is all about. This is what I found as I've kind of helped other people, watched my own path of finding God and thinking about it, reflecting on it often. And that's how I see people through the whole process of finding God. That's kind of like the bigger thing. At first, you're not really sure if he exists. You've gotten lost. You've heard a lot of other people that believe that God exists, and you don't really know what he looks like. You don't understand how he communicates, and you don't see him the way that maybe you're used to seeing him. You know, the way that you might see a person or something like that. I think we all kind of, when we're first starting out, we might think or lean towards that. We want to see a human being. And that's completely fine. And I don't think that that's a bad tool, because it helps you focus on something so that you can create God for yourself. That's really what you're doing. You want to create God for the way that you want it to. He's like an expression of you and everything else. So what I recommend is you go check out some sources, some texts, and you start kind of putting the pieces together. It's kind of like you're creating your puzzle of God. What does he look like for you? How does he sound to you? How does he talk to you? All that kind of stuff. So you're really allowed to make that look any way you want. But yeah, so that's kind of where I was going with this thought. So let's move on to the next one. Oh, well, actually, I kept going on that thought. Interesting. So I'll pick up from where I was doing that, I guess. Or no, I guess we... Oh, I recorded this twice. This is the same exact thought. Why did that happen? I don't know. Okay, let's move on. Permission to slow down and think about your own thoughts and questions. And question them and wrestle with them. Sometimes we just accept our thoughts sometimes, and I think we gotta wrestle with our own too. Just as much as we think about what others are saying, we are also imperfect, and we need to accept that. We sometimes give ourselves too much credit when we need to work on things. Now, what I'm getting at here is how the ego likes to coddle us a little too much, likes to protect us from pain. And so sometimes our thoughts are geared towards protecting. And so we'll do anything to keep our image, keep our mental space, keep our physical space. I mean, even beyond the ego and the physical world, out here in the external, we'll take a certain path because it's more safe to us, or it comforts us, or we're not scared to do that. So you can see how we kind of make choices, but we also do that with our inner world too. We protect ourselves. And so what I'm really saying here is I'm kind of granting other people, myself included too, I was basically speaking to myself, but for everybody, is that you have permission to go as slow as you want and to think about your thoughts and to process them. I think most of us get into this autopilot mode where thoughts just race by, and as soon as they kind of pop into our head, we'll just grab whatever's there. And sometimes they're good thoughts, sometimes they're not good thoughts. And I just feel like it's like a pre-recording sometimes in our head, or like a safer thought, or, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is me kind of letting you guys know that, not all the thoughts are great thoughts. I mean, if we think about psychology and how they play this kind of thing, they're called like intrusive thoughts when they're not the best thoughts in there. And according to most psychologists, that's a very common thing. So it's like, don't feel necessarily bad about it, but it also means maybe you got some work to do in there. Maybe you need to think about what you were thinking about. And I know that sounds weird, but it's probably more true. And, give yourself some credit, because the reason that you do a lot of this stuff is because you're trying to protect yourself. And that's an honest thing. But you also need to be able to release the grip on that too. And so that's really what I'm getting at with this thought. Okay, let's move on. I see we're I've got quite a bit here, so this might be a long session. So, pause frequently, skip ahead. I'll try to do my best with some timestamps and markers and such in there for you guys. Okay. Let's see. Where was I going with this one? They express to us a part of God, so we can find God and believe. I think that's what any sacred text should do. Give us a glimpse. No matter the words or combinations or how it's transmitted, it should make us deep down feel like it's a part of God. We are all expressions of God. Different ways, unique ones, etc. The reason that I kind of came up with this thought, or what kind of helped me articulate it in such a way, is that I like to think of a lot of the texts that are out there, the most sacred ones, the most well-established and traditional religions that are out there, at least the ones that I've experienced, and I haven't seen them all, so I'm sure that other ones will fit into this. I feel like they're all different pathways to the same thing. They're all different versions of the same message. But I feel like, for instance, and I'm going off on a limb here, so, I can't say that this is a perfect science or a perfect way to, is this a theology? I'm not really sure what this is, but I think I kind of like to think of Christianity as the heart of a divine body. And I kind of like to think of Buddhism, or maybe even some Taoism. Maybe I like to think of that as the brain of, this divine body. And maybe I like to think of the skin as some other sacred text or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like they're all trying to create this bigger body, and they each are kind of like pieces of it. And I'm sure that some of them do all of it, maybe under one hood. It's the full body. But I'm not really sure about that. That's, this is kind of what this is for. I'm wrestling with these things. But what I'm really trying to say here is that it's not a terrible idea to kind of find the parts that you're missing. I think that that's a noble thing to do. And I think most establishments maybe frown on that a little bit too much, because they don't want to lose you. You know what I mean? You're a part of their audience. They want to be able to help you. And I think that that's an honest thing that a lot of places maybe feel. And so that's what I think about that. And I also think that we're all specific expressions of God. And I don't think that that's a, what's the word for it? I don't think that that's like a still image. I think you're allowed to be any expression of God at any time that you feel necessary. I mean, be wise about that. You shouldn't just be angry out in public all the time, in my opinion. I mean, maybe that works for some people, but, what I'm saying is, there's a range of emotions, and I feel like those are different expressions, and I feel like we're unique in how we're able to use those, but use them wisely. So that's what I got on that. Okay. Here's one that I kind of said about myself. This was kind of me taking the making me more human and realizing where my place is in all this. Since we're both human and divine, this is what I say to kind of bring me back down to earth and keep me here in a good way. At the end of the day, I'm just a believer. I've seen his works, and I'm just proud to be a part of it. And that's where I kind of like to see my role in all of this. I'm just here to help. I'm just here to help people find God. I am here to wrestle with it with you guys. I think that that's where I'm best, is in the dirt with you guys. Down here trying to figure out what works for me and what might work for you too. I spent many, many years wrestling with this, wrestling with different texts, wrestling with different ideas, wrestling with philosophies, theologies, the metaphysics of it, the metaphors, the paradoxes. And, I've gotten to a point where I feel like I have some really good beliefs shaped out. And I feel like that's a never-ending, evolving process. And I feel like we always get closer and closer and closer. But maybe we never really touch it. Or maybe we just catch a glimpse of it. And that's what I really think is the mystery of it all, is nobody really knows. But we just keep getting closer and closer and closer to something that becomes more and more real to us. And we all see it in a little bit different of a way. So I'm just here to kind of, show you guys what it's like to kind of wrestle with these ideas. Okay, let me move on. Yeah, you get the idea on that. Boy, I didn't realize how much I captured. This was all at one of the good hours, 3 o'clock, 3 in the morning, 3:33 in the morning last night. And for anybody that likes symbology and stuff like that, that is a 3 sets of threes. So that's that window, and I keep waking up in that, and just I end up pulling open my phone and capturing all this stuff as it comes to me, and I like sharing it too. So, let me know what you guys think so far. We got quite a bit more. I'll keep going here. You got to find your own truth, but it's buried in lies. The ego hides truth from us, so we need to wrestle and struggle to find them. And the ones that matter, and the ones that matter especially to us, are the ones we feel, or that we arrive at within ourselves. That's some of the work that's involved. So this kind of almost piggybacks off the last one, but I think it's a little bit more direct, or a little bit different. We like to hide the truth from ourselves. I feel like it's kind of like this cat and mouse game sometimes, and we bury them. I don't know if it's to protect us for a certain timing thing, like when the time's right, these ideas will blossom in our lives and grow. Maybe we caught it at an early age where we weren't really sure what that idea was or what it would mean to us in the future. Maybe we needed some more experience before we really understood what that idea was going to turn into for us down the road. So I feel like sometimes there's multiple reasons why we might hide the truth from ourselves. Or sometimes it's just buried in lies. Just generally speaking, you've gotten something that is maybe partially true, but you need to kind of be more malleable with it and bend it to what works for you, what your soul sees as an honest truth to itself. I think truths matter to all of us, and I think they might be just a little bit different for most people, or maybe not. Maybe when we all hear a truth, maybe we all say, "That's it." That's perfect the way it is, and So I feel like there's maybe some different ways to interpret truths. Some people may feel a little bit different about that, and I'm completely open to these. I've been wrestling with these for a long time too, so this is kind of just where I'm at now. But I feel like it's like a pathway that you kind of keep walking, and so we've probably all experienced similar thoughts. So that's what I got on that. Let's move on to the next one. This thought is, before I get into this one, you could see God in a lot of different ways. I'll just say it that way. But I think I like this one, or this is like one version of God that I kind of like. I think it fits a certain vacancy in my heart that I think is good. I don't think it's the only way you should see God, but I think it's a good way to see God. One way. Maybe it'll make you think about it a little bit differently. God is situational. So learning discernment and how to express your godlike person from within and expression of is important. Each situation in life may call for a different version of God. So learn which is best. That's why you study sacred texts. God knew when to be gentle and when to be wrathful too. I guess this is kind of a statement to understand that you have permission to be more than just one version of yourself. And let me kind of elaborate on that a little bit. That might be hard to really see what I mean by that. There's going to be situations where perhaps you need to step in or do something or rise to the occasion. And maybe that's not for everybody. And you don't have to be, this is just a permission to understand that you could be anything you want to be out there is really what this is permission to be. And, you don't have to step in. I'm not saying go out there, throw some kid out before it gets hit by a bus, be the hero, save that. I think you should. But, you don't have to. But what I'm saying is you can be a hero if you want to be. If the situation calls for a hero and you want to be that hero and you think it's in you and your heart and it's the right thing to do, do it. But there's also a time where you can just be humble, gentle, caring, and unconditionally loving. But then there's also a time where, if it's just the wrong environment, if the people are not going to be receptive of something like that, or maybe even going to throw hate on you or something like that, where you feel endangered or frightened, you got to use discernment. There's a time to do that, and there's a time not to do that. And I feel like that's how you gain experience, and that's how you become more wise in spirituality. And that's why boundaries matter, and that's why so many other things matter, so that you know when and how to hold space for other people and to be able to heal when it's necessary, heal other people, share your love and your presence, that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm kind of trying to say here. Maybe I'm speaking a little bit too much metaphorical, or maybe I'm using God in a different context that even I'm not too familiar with. This was a thought that came to me last night and I liked it. That's all I can say. I can't say that this is a firm belief. I'm wrestling with these, and I'm wrestling with them out loud with you guys. So you guys can kind of think about it for yourselves. Okay, here's an interesting thought. Man's chase for perfection diluted the very part of him that made him human. I love this one. I think that this is a very simple way of how we keep trying to make everything as perfect as we possibly can out here. And I feel like that's a noble pursuit, but I feel like when we turn that all the way to the extreme, and that's the only thing that we care about as human beings, I think we lose our humanity in that. And I really think that that speaks to the culture that we live in today. I really believe that. And this was probably the best way I think I've ever said that. I've said it in a lot of different ways. And I think that this one really gets to the heart of a lot of things. And while I'm going to maybe just focus on capitalism and kind of what we live in and the way that that looks, it's almost like, a very few people we entrust to make the best products, the most perfect ones, the best quality, and to be sold that. But, I think that there's something to be said about the mom and pop stores and, getting real fruits and vegetables from the earth, not these chemically modified ones that are made in a lab or in, I'm not necessarily against it either. I think it just needs more balance is all I'm really trying to say. I'm not, I'm not shaking my fist necessarily at capitalism. I think at the heart of it, it's a good system. But I also think that there's a lot of byproducts of that system that, have really hurt us as human beings, have hurt us as we kind of keep moving towards this perfection that I don't think we were ever really supposed to have. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a noble pursuit. But I also think we need to do both. We need to do better. There's a paradox there. Perfection's a really beautiful thing. I think that that's how we can create some beauty in this world. But I also think we need to also level that out and realize that we're imperfect. We are imperfect. And so we can be both perfect and imperfect at the same time. And I feel like to chase one more than the other is to really go to one extreme way too much. So that's really what I'm getting at. I think that that's an important thought and something maybe to think about. Okay, let's move on. Now, here's one from the Christian Bible. And I'm going to be pulling stuff from Eastern and Western traditions, but this is one that I've thought about quite a bit. So, Adam and Eve. Let's talk about Adam and Eve here for a second. And here's what I think about Adam and Eve. I feel like one of the ways that people wrestle with it and maybe even get stuck before they can see the real meaning behind it is when we get too focused on the gender roles there. I want people to just think of it as two humans that made a mistake or disobeyed God. And I think that that's at the heart of what that lesson's really trying to say. And then I think from there, there's probably a lot of different interpretations that you can make out of that. But I think that that's kind of like the first step of kind of seeing like where the real fruit of that lesson is. So let me tell you what I wrote here. And it should make sense with kind of how I set that up. If a man wrote it, he'd have blamed the woman. If a woman wrote it, she'd have blamed the man. And in my opinion, that doesn't necessarily matter who wrote it. So get rid of the gender roles and the wars behind the gender wars behind it, and just see it as two human beings disobeying God's wishes or commands. And look what happened next. We all suffered because of their decisions. We are products of what they did in the garden. So, that's one way to look at it. Another is what boundaries mean. And perhaps when to test them or push them, if you're maybe a little bit of a rebel like me. But be warned. You must use caution and learn when you're pushing boundaries too hard. God will guide you back when you do so. So pay attention and listen and learn the lessons and boundaries. So a couple of things here. I gave you two kind of different views on that. One is that we disobeyed God. And because of that, we now need to kind of find ourselves back to God. That's the big picture here. I think that that's a great lesson, whether or not you consider that a truth, a metaphor, or something beyond that. Whatever you want to call that, I like to see it that way. And I think that that makes a lot of sense when you think about spirituality, generally speaking. There's some suffering to be had before you can get the fruits and such like that. You need to work back to that. You know what I mean? We were kind of casted out of the garden, and we want to make our way back into that garden. And that was because Adam and Eve had disobeyed. So I really do love that story. So that's one interpretation there. I think it's a good interpretation, and you're welcome to that interpretation. Another interpretation is boundaries, or maybe a lesson that comes out of that. Maybe not another interpretation, but maybe an actual lesson out of that is learning what it looks like to push boundaries. All right? Adam and Eve pushed their luck a little too much there, right? But God still understood them as human beings, as being imperfect, and still gave them a chance to kind of find themselves back. But I think we can still apply that to the day and age now. I don't think you should get so caught up in necessarily disobeying God. I know that that might not settle for some people. Maybe that's not the message I'm trying to really say here. Again, I'm wrestling with these things. But what I'm really saying is don't necessarily be scared to push a little bit. Don't overdo it. Be wise about the way that you push. Don't necessarily break laws. Don't break... I think you catch what I'm saying here. I am not saying go out on some hell-bent mission and disobey God because you want to be some big rebel, and you just want to act a certain way. I'm not suggesting that you do that. But I think that story kind of says that, if you were going to push boundaries, there's still a way back to God, and it's actually okay to be human. We are human, according to that story, we kind of lost a part of our divinity because of that, or the garden, or however you want to interpret that and see that. So God was, unconditionally loving, and although he casted us out, he still gave us an opportunity to work ourselves back to him. So what I'm saying is, I guess that's what I'm saying. So let's move on. Ooh, well, this is a nice follow-up to this. Being scared isn't a reason to not take action. It's where the best work is born. It makes you stop and think twice and reconsider and plan. But it should never stop you from taking action. That's when it becomes fear. When you're too scared to take an action. That's when it actually turns into fear. So what I'm kind of saying here is that sometimes, and you need to use your best judgment, sometimes you're going to be scared, and that's okay. It shouldn't stop you from taking action. I think this is a simple one. I don't need to get too elaborated on it, but it's a good one. And I think it's a good one that really makes a lot of sense to me in life and in spirituality. So let me say that. Okay, let's go on to the next one here. Letting your inner world out and to breathe. Make sure to clean it up first and then let it out. To you, and you found him and understand him, not fully, but he feels real. Not sure where I was going with that one. That one's a scattered thought there. I know where I was going with that first part. Let me describe where I think I was going with this. That's definitely some broken English there. I must have been half falling asleep when I was writing this one. So I remember this thought now that I'm thinking about it. This was me saying, work on cleaning up your inner world before you start sharing your inner world. I think that's what they talk about in a lot of spirituality. Is it specifically Christianity? I'm not sure. But making sure that your inner temple, like you are the gateway to your inner temple, and you want to treat your inner world as a temple. You want to keep that clean. And, we bring in some of the stuff that we shouldn't bring in. I think that's kind of the nature of the beast too. But it's treating it like a temple that constantly needs upkeep, needs work, needs to stay clean. And so that's on you to do that. But what I'm saying with this is that, when you keep it clean, it will be much easier for you to be honest and to just share your thoughts and your inner world and the love that you have within you. So do your due diligence and make sure you're being a good gatekeeper to your own mind and to your own thoughts. I know I've probably said that in other ways, but I think it's a key thing, and I think I'm just saying it maybe in a different way that might resonate with some other people. Okay, so that's what I got on that one. Let's see, the next one. Permission to slow down and think about your own thoughts. Didn't we already talk about that? Yeah, why is this? Huh. I must have said that one twice. Okay, give me just 1 second. Let me take a look here. Let's just take a quick break. Interesting. That might have been it. I think I might have double copied all these. Yeah, I did. That's it. I have no idea how I did that, but these are double copied. which is okay. I thought that one started to sound familiar there. Okay, guys, we're almost at 30 minutes. Wow, that wasn't too bad. I actually thought this was going to be a longer one. Good. I'm happy. All right, well, guys, I hope that this helps. I'll probably do a couple more of these. They're longer, but I think there's a lot of great insight in here. I think it's kind of wrestling with the stuff that I think we all wrestle with. So it's kind of nice to have a partner in doing that and just sharing it so that you don't feel so alone in your thoughts and maybe some of the ways that you might wrestle with some of these, and maybe put a little bit too much pressure on yourself to arrive at a conclusion. I think it's healthy with this kind of stuff when you didn't get it from a first-hand source. You know what I mean? A lot of this stuff has been here for centuries and centuries, and we're all wrestling with it. We're all trying to figure out that. And I feel like the more that you go to different sources and the more that you wrestle with it, the more that the truths become clear to you. And I think that that's actually a really key point. I'm kind of glad I'm pointing that out at the end of this session. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys have found some value in it. Please leave some comments. Feel free to disagree, okay? Don't spread hate, please. But if you disagree with something, if you can do that respectfully in the comments and maybe push back a little bit, I would be happy if you did. That tells me that I've got more work to do. You know, when people just kind of shake their heads and say, oh yeah, this is great. Yeah, I love what you're saying. That does nothing for me. It does nothing for you guys. And that just makes me feel like, oh yeah, I'm perfect. I've got all this figured out and all this. I'm not trying to be that guy. I like wrestling with this stuff. I like arriving at my own conclusions, and I like sharing that with other people. And I like being open about that, which is what this is all about. Why I do these open notebooks for you guys. Not just to share the thoughts, but to help you guys not feel so alone about that. I'm sure that we all wrestle with these, or we all should wrestle with these, is what I should say. This is hard stuff sometimes, and some of it might feel easy, but maybe there's another angle you could have looked at something. Okay, I'm doing a little bit of rambling here at the end again. Thank you so much for being here, guys. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. See you guys.